I never thought I'd be the one standing on the edge of everything I believed in, shattered by a single moment. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way she hid it, like a venomous secret wrapped in a smile. The truth slipped through the cracks, her deception exposed in a flash of horror that felt like a punch to the gut. The woman I loved had vanished, replaced by someone I could no longer trust. The anger burned deep, but what scared me more was the cold emptiness left in its wake. Like I'd lost more than just her, I'd lost who I was. "Where have you been?" She rushed towards him the moment she spotted him. He was surprised she knew he was there. Maybe the front desk told her when the taxi arrived. She got to him just as the duty manager began talking to him. He ignored the manager and turned to his wife, forcing a smile. "Hey, sweetie, I'm back. Did you miss me?" She stopped in front of him, a little out of breath. Her blonde hair was tied back, but a few strands were loose, framing her face nicely. Her cheeks were red from walking quickly. "That's not funny, Sal. I was worried." He shrugged and started walking towards their room. "I don't know why." She paused, but seeing he wasn't stopping, she hurried after him. The duty manager stepped in between them. "Mr. Calzone, you need to go on the excursions if you signed up for them. It's a rule here." "I didn't sign up for anything." "Your wife signed you up. If she does that, you have to go." Sal stopped and faced him. "I don't think you get it. I'm not going on your outing. I told my wife I didn't want to go, and I didn't. Tomorrow you're—" Sal interrupted him. "What do you think I'll do? Your wife has signed you up for a sailing trip down the coast." He looked at his wife. "Are you going on that, Alice?" She shook her head. "I have a spa appointment. Reuben will go with you." He let out a small laugh without any real humor. "She's not going, and neither am I." He started walking again, feeling his camera bag bump against his side as he moved away. "Mr. Calzone!" he heard someone call, but he ignored it and kept going. He tried the black access ring on the door lock. It didn't open. He tried again, realizing that the manager and his wife had caught up with him. "My ring isn't working." He kept his voice steady, knowing it was best to stay calm. "I'll help you," his wife said, stepping forward. "No, wait. Why isn't my ring working?" The duty manager replied, "We turned off your access when you were unaccounted for. My things are in that room. If this ring doesn't work in 5 minutes, I will get my belongings another way." Sal looked at his watch and sat on the small stone wall nearby. "Mr. Calzone." 4 minutes and 50 seconds. "Sal, I can let you into the room." His wife stepped forward and opened the door. Sal gently moved her aside and closed the door again. He tried the ring on the lock, but nothing happened. That didn't solve it. He glanced at his watch again. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The duty manager glanced between the couple. "Okay, I'll help you get back in." Sal checked his watch again. "You need to hurry. You've got 4 minutes before you need to bring someone to help." The man hurried away, leaving Sal and his wife alone. "Sal, what's happening? Why didn't you join Reuben on that trip? He went alone and was really upset." Sal shrugged. "I've told you already. This vacation hasn't been what I expected. It's supposed to be our time together, not just yours with your sister. I came here to be with you. And we will spend time together. If you had been here tonight, we could have connected." "Honestly, Alice, I was only a bit late. My taxi followed the minibus back. We wouldn't have had much time together anyway." "But tomorrow evening we can be together. You should go on that trip. I thought you'd have fun. When you come back, we can have dinner, just the two of us." Sal shook his head. "No, I've made it clear. Don't sign me up for trips without asking me first. If you're not going, then I don't want to go either. I don't get why you're upset. Most people appreciate when their partner arranges activities for them. Most people on vacation with their partners want to spend time with them, not someone else." He checked his watch, counting the last 20 seconds. He turned to the door and pressed his ring against the lock. "Sal!" his wife called. "Don't!" The door clicked open, and he stepped into the cool air of their suite. He set down his camera bag on the table and went to the fridge for a drink. He enjoyed the quiet sound of the bottle opening. He returned to the table and took out his camera. He released the memory card and walked to his laptop, inserting the card and turning it on. "What are you doing?" He could hear her impatience. "I have some pictures to look at. I had a snack before I got back." It's not like we can actually do anything together, is it? You kind of made that hard with your choices. We can still have fun together. Not right now, I can't. She wrapped her arms around his neck from behind. You could help me with things. Sorry, Alice, I'm just not in the mood. He gently moved her aside. Then there was a knock at the door, and Alice went to answer it while he worked on his laptop. He logged in and started looking through his photos from the day. He looked up as the duty manager walked in. He returned his focus to the screen until he heard the man clear his throat. You shouldn't have a laptop here. I need this for work. I can't give it up. He made eye contact, remembering he had left his phone during check-in, but this device was important to keep. Calzone, because of your actions today, the hotel is giving you a warning. If this happens again, you might be asked to leave. Sal looked up from his work. Okay. Tomorrow I won't join the trip my wife planned for me. I won't go anywhere without her. You can ask me to leave. This place hasn't met my expectations. The access I have here is limited, the staff isn't helpful, and for the high price I paid, the service hasn't been good. I feel more like a problem than a guest. He raised a hand, signaling the manager to let him finish. Tomorrow I have my own plans, and I'll keep doing that whenever my wife isn't here. If that's all, I'd like to get back to my work. He noticed the manager looked unhappy, but his wife took the manager's arm and they left the room. He heard the door close behind them. Honestly, he wouldn't mind if they asked him to leave. There were other hotels on the island that seemed better. Taking a sip of his beer, he returned to his computer. He had captured over 1,000 photos, mostly from the wedding, and he began organizing them. Thanks to his experience, he could quickly remove blurry shots or those that didn't show the subject properly. As he sorted, he arranged the good photos into the right folders. Earlier that day, he had stepped outside the hotel with his camera. The area wasn't recommended for visitors, according to the hotel's warnings, but he felt comfortable there. Taking photos was both his job and his passion. He focused on capturing pictures of different buildings, not just the important ones, but also the small homes where families lived. He looked for real local places where he could see life as it was lived by everyday people away from the tourists. The door opened softly as she walked back into the room. Sal, I'm sorry. I know I've been thoughtless, and I truly apologize. She walked over to him and gently touched his forehead. I realize this hasn't been much of a vacation for you. I've had a great time, but I guess it's been harder for you. Tomorrow I've signed up for the trip, if you're still willing to come with me. He looked up at her and smiled. Great. I'm happy to have my wife back. I'll enjoy going with you. Are you all right if I go tell Sarah? He nodded. Yeah, I'm going. To be a little busy. Yeah, I know, she finished for him. She understood. They both knew he was focused when he worked. After a day of shooting photos, he'd spent a few hours looking through them. She left the room, and Sal glanced up as the door closed. He took another drink and noticed the bottle was nearly empty. He walked over to the fridge and grabbed another one, ready for when the first one ran out. He sat back down and continued reviewing his photos. There were some nice shots from earlier in the day. However, it was the wedding he wanted to see. He had taken a wrong turn when he spotted a quaint little church. He wasn't sure about the type of church, but he thought it might be Catholic. He took a quick photo of the church's sign just in case he needed it later. When he noticed a wedding taking place, his curiosity got the better of him and he moved closer. In his younger days, he had made extra money working as a wedding photographer in New York. He was pretty good at it, and that was how he had met Alice. While wedding photography wasn't his favorite, he had built a good name for himself and earned a decent living. He still took weddings now and then to keep his skills sharp. When he spotted this wedding, he saw a chance to witness how people celebrated in this area. He made sure to stay out of the way while taking photos. Being respectful, he asked guests if they were okay with him taking pictures. An older man, who turned out to be the father of the bride, spoke with him. Sal introduced himself, showed his credentials, and offered to photograph the wedding. After making sure there were no costs or hidden motives, the man agreed, and Sal began taking the usual photos at the church. He was also invited to the reception, which was more of a casual gathering. He happily walked to the party with the group, chatting and answering their questions along the way. Sal had worked hard as a photographer. It had been his passion since he was young. He quickly learned that making people feel at ease was important for getting great photos. He talked, made friends, and showed interest while gradually blending into the background, allowing him to move around and capture moments with his camera. He was captivated by the colorful, festive clothing that everyone wore, especially the older men. As the day moved into the afternoon and the meal finished, the music grew louder and people started to relax and enjoy themselves. Sal was pleased to see that even though they looked different, the enjoyable behaviors were like those at weddings he often attended. What impressed him the most was how lively the older men were on the dance floor. Around 10 or 15 of them, likely relatives or friends of the bride's father, were wonderful dancers. They took to the dance floor early, creating a lively display of color and smiles. Sal found the scene enchanting, and as the bridal party mingled in the background, he roamed around taking pictures. While it wasn't award-winning material, it was the kind of story he could write up for a magazine. It could even turn out to be a profitable opportunity, and some of the images might be good enough for a competition. He enjoyed the food and took his time capturing the pictures he wanted. He got the contact information for one of the older men from the wedding and promised to reach out in a few days. He wasn't sure if he would send the photos as a collection, print them out, or just email them, but he wanted to give a special keepsake from their wedding day. Leaving the wedding to go back to the resort was tough, as he worried about how he would be received. Still, he stayed calm during the taxi ride and tipped the driver well, hoping he could call him again later. Earlier, he hadn't seen any taxis near the hotel. Back at his desk, he started organizing the wedding photos, picking out the formal shots, groups, and pictures of family and friends with the happy couple. He made a folder with these pictures to begin his delivery to them. Then, he went through the photos from the reception to find the ones he wanted to use. He was pleasantly surprised by how many great pictures he had taken. The guests, even the older men in their 50s and 60s, looked full of life and happiness. The images showed true joy, the spirit of celebration through color and dance, illustrating how people of all ages enjoyed the occasion. He heard Alice come back and noticed the time. He couldn't believe how late it was. "Wow, you've been gone for a bit." She walked over to him, slightly off balance. "I was with Sarah and Reuben. I thought you'd be busy with this, so I decided to have some fun with them instead." He smiled, seeing her a bit wobbly, then saved his work and turned off the computer. He brushed his teeth quickly and climbed into bed. Alice joined him, snuggling in closer. She lay on her side, looking at him with a smile. "Feeling uncomfortable?" she asked. "Bad idea. I can't believe I went along with it," he replied softly. She took his hand, trying to pull it nearer. "Come on, let's have some fun. We haven't done anything since we got here." He gently pulled his hand back. "I told you how I feel about this. If I'm not involved, then you shouldn't be too. I don't see why I should make things easy for you if I'm left waiting." She laughed at his words. "It'll be worth it when we get home, you know that. It's not quite the same when you're waiting, but when the time comes, it's the best. Then we can enjoy those moments together. If it's so important to you, you can wait too." He rolled over, understanding the game she was playing. She'd introduced this new twist to their relationship about 6 months ago to bring some thrill. He had been unsure at first, but eventually went along with it. They had tried new things, which felt like a nice change after many years of being together. But during this holiday, the night before they were set to go, she had given him a good time. They didn't talk about the new plan, but when she tried to bring it up again, he didn't understand. "It's for the holiday," she said. "You've enjoyed yourself. Now you can wait until we're back. Then I'll make you happy." After a long talk, he finally agreed to her wishes, though not very happily. It wasn't until they got to the airport that he remembered she had forgotten the key at home, leaving him stuck for the 2 weeks they would be away. At that moment, he decided that if he couldn't have a good time, neither would she. He was annoyed with himself for getting into this mess. He had told her that this holiday would be the end of their current plans. To him, by leaving the key behind and not saying anything, she had broken his trust. This was their first fight of the holiday. He chose to ignore her upset feelings. She could handle things herself if she wanted. He wasn't in the mood to talk more. He quickly fell asleep, feeling that he had enjoyed the day and that tomorrow might be better. He hadn't wanted to go back, not after their talk. He wished he could pause and think. Emotions swirled inside him, and he noticed that they were clouding his mind. He needed to find calm and clarity to think clearly, but he knew it would take time, and time was running out. Before long, he was dropped off at the usual place, a short walk from the resort. He could go back without being seen. He had arranged for a ride the next day, knowing it would be busy, but he wasn't sure how he wanted to spend that time. As he walked to the resort, a small bus arrived and a group stepped off, tired from their trip. That was where he was meant to be. Even though they had talked about it before, Alice had signed him up for a trip with Reuben. He had said he didn't want to go, and their earlier arguments had dulled the good time they had the day before. Alice had seen him off to the bus, and he was surprised by her sudden anger. Her insistence that he go was unexpected. Not wanting to argue in front of others, he decided to keep quiet. After sitting on the bus for a few minutes, he asked the driver if he could get off. He said he forgot something in his room, ignoring the tour guide's annoyed comments. His wife was nowhere to be seen, and he guessed she had gone to areas of the resort he couldn't reach. Confused by the situation, he pushed his thoughts aside and headed back to his room. He organized some USB drives for pictures and then left, keeping to himself. Once in his room, he grabbed what he needed and stepped out. He called for a taxi after leaving the resort and walked down the street to meet it. He wanted to keep his phone a secret and avoid being spotted by the tour bus that might send him back. When he peeked around the corner and saw that the bus had gone, he felt relieved and kept walking until his taxi arrived. He got into the front seat beside the driver and said hello. He asked to go to the main shopping area on the island, and the driver agreed. "How did you call for me? Aren't you supposed to be without phones?" the driver asked. He smiled and showed the driver his new phone. "I bought it on the first day. They took our phones when we arrived, but I took my SIM card out first. They were busy with other things and didn't notice." The driver looked puzzled and didn't seem to understand much about technology. "All my information is saved on my SIM card and online. My phone is just a tool. It doesn't hold anything personal. I got a new phone and switched the SIM card. They think I can't reach anyone. I think they've got it all wrong." The driver chuckled and nodded. "You're clever." Sal shook his head. "Not really. I didn't go to college. Others did. I learned by doing. That's how life has been for me, learning through experience." This was one way he didn't quite fit into Alice's world. She went to college, not just because she was bright, but because her family had the means. Her older sister Sarah went first, and Alice followed 2 years later. She took the same classes and even joined the same club. Sarah helped her along the way. Sarah met Reuben at college, but they didn't start dating until later. Sal didn't have the same advantages. He knew he wanted to be a photographer from a young age and realized that being great at it came from working with skilled photographers and practicing constantly. So that's what he did. His parents encouraged him to finish high school and get good grades. He took photos in every spare moment. If he wasn't at school, where he had a camera, doing chores, training at the gym, or trying to earn a little money, he was taking pictures. When he sat down to eat or study, he was always busy. After school, he tried to find jobs as a photographer, but everyone he approached turned him down. He took a moment to think things over and chose to try a new method. He started doing wedding photography on weekends when he was around 13 or 14. At first, he worked as a helper without pay. He would carry equipment, run errands, and help set up shots for the photographers. Although he wasn't paid, it allowed him to watch and learn. He observed how people were posed and how skilled photographers planned their shots to give clients exactly what they wanted with fewer pictures. He worked with various photographers and earned a reputation as a dependable assistant. He loved the job and was eager to learn more about photography. He had some chances to see different styles of photography. He witnessed commercial shoots that focused on items like jewelry and makeup, interesting but not what he really enjoyed. He loved weddings. The gatherings of families, the celebrations, and the happiness. There was a vibrant energy at weddings. Even though there were sometimes small issues, the overall feeling was uplifting. He found studio work dull in comparison, too rigid and not as lively or focused on people. As he continued to grow his skills, a key moment came when he worked with an older photographer at a wedding. This older man wasn't in the best shape, so Sal took on many tasks to help him. This photographer worked for the New York Times, and that day he opened a door for Sal by inviting him to see the office. For the older photographer, it was just a kindness, showing Sal a different work environment in return for his help. For Sal, it felt like a new opportunity had begun. He had left school a few months earlier and was searching for a way to support himself. He went to the office out of interest, knowing little about photojournalism, and that day changed everything. He loved the buzz of the newsroom, the fast pace, the sounds, the lively atmosphere. Within an hour, he felt welcome. He kept returning, becoming a regular in the office. He took on tasks, helped with errands, and stayed available to assist. In just a week, he received a pass that let him go in and out of the building easily. After 2 months, he had a job. Apprentice photographer. It might not sound very grand, but he was now a real employee at the New York Times, part of a respected team. He had a press card that gave him more access than he could have gotten on his own. He focused on his assignments without any complaints. He made friends and learned a lot by watching the experienced photographers and picking up their skills along the way. As time went on, he found himself with more chances to take photos. 3 months into his stay, one of his pictures was published, a small, blurry image in the New York Times. That day, he started a scrapbook, which he kept updated, now mostly in digital format. He saved every photo of his that had been printed. "You're American," the driver said. "You don't know much about hard work." A fun little challenge started between them as they drove into town, each sharing stories of their lives, making the trip enjoyable. He had chosen to leave his cameras in his room, and instead used his new smartphone with its camera for any pictures he might want to take. However, his main goal was to edit photos and get signatures on model agreements, knowing how important those agreements were for future sales, whether to magazines or as framed art. After a while, he found a print shop and explained what he needed to the man at the counter. He waited as his photos were printed. He also bought a nice album from the shop, paid the bill, and took a moment to organize his pictures in the album while enjoying a cool drink to beat the heat. Thanks to a lifetime in New York, he had a sharp sense of directions. As he walked, he grabbed a bite to eat and headed to a spot he had visited a few days earlier. There was no rush. The outing his wife thought he was on would end around 6. He had learned it was often easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission, so he wanted to enjoy his day before thinking about any consequences. He reached the house where the party had been and stood outside, trying to remember where the old man's house was located. He had enjoyed a few drinks when the old man pointed it out, so he worried he might not recall the exact spot now that he was sober. As he moved closer to the house, he saw the old man sitting in the shade. A hat was tilted down over his face, and he could hear soft snores as he approached. "Good afternoon, Charlie," he called out. The figure stirred and pushed the hat up to see who was speaking, taking a moment to recognize him. "Mr. New York cameraman, how are you?" Sal was offered a chair and a cool drink as he sat down. He presented the photo album to Charlie. "I came to give you this. Honestly, they turned out even better than I expected. You all look great." He watched as the old man flipped through the album, taking his time to look at each photo. When he closed it, he looked up at Sal. "How much do I owe you?" he asked quietly. Sal shook his head. "I told you at the wedding it's free. I do this back home, and it was nice to spend the day with your family. It was a lovely experience for me." "Free?" The old man looked surprised. "This costs money." He pointed at the album. Sal shrugged. "This is what I do. I take photos, and there's no point if no one enjoys them. Think of it as me giving something back." He noticed the man's cautious expression. "Okay, look, if you want to help me out, I could sell these photos, but I need a release signed." "I sign my name and that's it?" Sal nodded. "You'd be helping me out. I got some great shots of everyone dancing. I'd like to do something with them." "We can dance." "Sure, your outfits looked great together. We're part of a club, you know." Sal shook his head. "We've been dancing for years." The last word stretched out, highlighting their long history. "You're really good at it. Do you want to see our club? Want to see our proper dance?" "I'd like that," Sal replied, a little unsure. "Let me show this to my family first, then we can talk. Sound good, Salvatore?" The old man called for his wife, and Sal smiled as the man showed the photos, pointing out friends as if she didn't already know them. Afterward, they went to the bride's home, where everyone in the neighborhood got to see the album. Sal tried to stay in the background but was constantly pulled forward and thanked. By mid-afternoon, the excitement calmed down. Charlie sat next to him and handed him another drink, which Sal gratefully accepted. "Club nights are on Saturday. That's when we dance. You come down here and I'll take you to our club and you can take photos of us." Sal smiled. "I'd really like that. If it's anything like this wedding, it'll be amazing." "Oh, it's even better. You're going to have a great time." Charlie playfully nudged him. "Thanks, Charlie, but I'm happily married." He paused and chuckled lightly. "Well, I am married, but perhaps not as happily as I thought." He paused, sipping his drink. It tasted sweet and refreshing in the afternoon heat. "Trouble at home?" "Yeah, we came on vacation with her sister and brother-in-law. So far, I've spent one day with her. The rest of the time, she's been off at the spa with her sister." Charlie grimaced. "Anyway, I've made it through what, 5 days now? 5 days of tasteless food, unhelpful service, silly outings, and hardly any time with my wife. But," he held up his hand, nodding slowly, "but on the bright side, I only have 9 days left. Almost halfway done." Charlie shook his head slowly. "I'm sorry about that." "No need to apologize. The wedding was my first chance to break free. That was the best part of the trip so far. Yesterday was pretty nice, too. My wife joined me for a day trip that she had planned, and we had a wonderful time together. I've had 2 good days. Today was nice. Spending time with you all has been really fun." "Sal, I'm sorry. I truly am. Hey, Charlie, don't worry. This is just a short moment. It will pass. I've got some plans set for the next 9 days, and I'm starting to push back a little. I've found ways to enjoy myself. They won't break me. I'm pretty tough." "So, what plans do you have? How are you handling things?" "I have a mobile phone." Sal held up his phone. "Didn't they take it away when you got there?" Sal nodded. "Yep, but I got the SIM card out. Everything on the phone saves to cloud storage, and without the SIM card, it's just a device. As soon as I put the SIM card into this new phone, I was in a better spot. This phone is even nicer than the one I gave them. Smart move. A small win, but it means I can call a taxi and get taken into town. It gives me a bit of freedom." "Good. So you can get a taxi when needed. I have a regular driver and have been giving him good tips to keep him happy. He's having a great week. By the time I'm done here, he'll have a new car." Charlie laughed. "How do you avoid their plans?" "I use different tricks each day. The first time I told my wife I was going and then didn't go. I just wandered off and waited until I saw the minibus leave. Then I followed it until someone picked me up. That was on wedding day." "That sounds easy." "Yeah, they were not happy when I returned. I was warned that if I caused more trouble, I might be asked to leave. Could be a blessing in disguise." "I don't know, Charlie. My wife was just as upset as the hotel staff. If I get kicked out, I'm not sure she would come with me." "It might not be the worst thing." Sal looked at him. He had been talking with an older man, but not really listening, just giving short answers. The last comment caught his attention. "Today, my lovely wife put me on the minibus." "Sounds like she wanted some space." "Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? Anyway, I sat down, let them drive off a bit, then I talked to the driver until he stopped. I said I left my camera in the room and got off the bus to get it. I didn't wait for them and walked back. After a while, I called my driver for a pickup, and here I am. I don't think that trick will work again, though." "So your wife came along for one day out. What about the others?" "One day I went with Reuben, my brother-in-law. That was the first day. The second trip I went alone because there was a mix-up, and he couldn't come. On the third day, I didn't go. Day 4, Allie joined me for the outing. Then today, he was with me again. But this time, I let him enjoy the trip. He didn't seem happy when I managed to slip away." Sal chuckled at the memory. "I guess your wife has a gold ring. Her sister has a gold ring. Reuben has a pink ring, and you've got a black one. Am I right?" Charlie looked down at his feet as he asked. "Yeah, that's right. How do you know that? Is that what all the resorts on the island do? I've never seen that before." Charlie shook his head. "No, only one resort here has that system. Gold rings get the best treatment. They pick what the pink and black rings eat." Sal nodded, feeling uneasy. A cold knot formed in his stomach. He wanted to know more, but he wasn't sure he did. "Yep, Each color has its own menu. Gold gets good food and chooses for the pink and black rings. Pink is better than black, but not as good as gold. Black is at the bottom. Why do you have a black ring and your wife a gold one? Sal shrugged. I don't know. It was given to us when we checked in. They decided before we arrived. At first, I didn't realize there was a difference. Later at dinner, I asked and was told to just accept it. We were new and probably didn't get how things worked. He paused for a moment, thinking. I asked Alice about it, and she said she didn't choose who got what ring. I asked to borrow her ring so I could see more of the resort, but she wouldn't let me in case they took it from her. Does your wife usually follow the rules? Sal laughed. Not usually, but here she seems to enjoy the special treatment her ring gives her. She keeps signing me up for activities even when I don't want to. And she chooses my meals, too. She won't share. Charlie, still avoiding his gaze, just shook his head. What am I missing, Charlie? Sal asked, his tone sharper. What else is different about this vacation? Charlie asked. What else is new? Sal paused to think. A thought crossed his mind, but it seemed unlikely. He sat there, trying to sort through his options. He could feel that something important was just out of reach. I don't know. Yeah, you do. It's whatever you aren't saying. Sal thought hard, but nothing came to him. He looked around for ideas. Finally, he met Charlie's gaze. It's not just the ring bothering you, is it? How do you know? Sal breathed. All the black and pink rings are worn by a lot of men. That's not true, Sal replied. Not at all. He got up and began to gather his things. You almost had me there, Charlie. I was starting to feel like there was something more happening, something beyond just chance. He kept gathering his things. Thanks for the drink, and please thank your family for being so nice, and also, thank you for the form. He shook his head to clear his mind. I won't be seeing you on Saturday night. I know when I'm being led on. See you later, Charlie. He started to walk away. Sal, the older man called. Sal, come back and sit down. You need to hear the rest. Sal turned back. Rest? What are we talking about, Charlie? Charlie pointed to the chair Sal had just left. After thinking for a moment, Sal decided to sit back down. He thought he could spare a few minutes for this man. Sal, the people with black rings are in the dark. That's what the ring means. The people with pink rings know what's going on and accept it. Accept what, Charlie? All the men with black rings and pink rings are facing a big limitation. Charlie raised a hand to keep Sal calm. The easiest way to prove this is to find another man in the same situation as you. If you do, that shows I'm right. You understand? Sal nodded, feeling the tension ease as he calmed down. So, men with black rings and pink rings are both facing this limitation? He added, wanting to make sure Charlie understood. That's right. The men with pink rings can be freed by their wives, while those with black rings cannot. So Reuben is stuck, like me, but Sarah, his wife, can free him while Alice cannot. Charlie nodded. Okay, what about the women with pink and black rings? Where do they fit into this? No women are limited at all. It's just the men. Women with pink rings know what's going on and are okay with it, while the ones with black rings don't know. And what about the gold rings? They are the honored guests for the vacation. They get the best treatment, with all the best food and access to everything. The hotel staff helps them enjoy their stay and keeps their spouse's activities private. Sal thought back to when he was separated from his wife. He remembered some paperwork he had to fill out while she was away. At that time, he hadn't thought much about it. But now, with what Charlie said, he wondered if those tasks were distractions to keep him from his wife. Why would they do that confused him. I don't know, Charlie. I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree. Sal, you were kind enough to come to my daughter's wedding, take pictures, and celebrate with us. We were happy to have you there to share our special day. You've brought back something worthwhile, a gift for us. Why would I want to hurt you? I get that, but it's making me think. This whole situation feels strange. You could be tricking me, but why would you? It doesn't really make sense. Once I'm back at the resort, I can check what you've told me. But the thought that my wife might be seeing someone else? That doesn't fit. She wouldn't do that. We've been together for more than 10 years and are looking ahead to our future. Come to our dance club on Saturday. Reuben, I don't have time for this right now, Sal replied, trying to move past him. Reuben stepped in his way. "I lost part of my vacation looking after you, only to have you run off, if you do that again." Before he could finish, Reuben pointed a finger at Sal. Instinctively, Sal stepped aside and gave Reuben a swift jab to the stomach. It caught Reuben by surprise, and he stumbled back, breathless. Sal quickly guided Reuben to a nearby bench, making sure no one was watching. It looked like he was just helping a friend rather than confronting him. As Reuben struggled to breathe, confused by what had just happened, Sal leaned in and softly said, "Reuben." Once Reuben caught his breath, he realized how serious the moment had become. "If you ever talk to me like that again," Sal warned, "you'll wish you hadn't." Reuben didn't fully understand what was happening, but he nodded, feeling relieved as he watched Sal walk away. Sal let out a breath as he walked, feeling a sense of relief. Reuben had always annoyed him, but he had to deal with him because they were family. He had put up with the snarky comments over the years, the little digs Reuben took at him in front of his wife and her family. But standing up for himself felt good. He smiled as he walked, ready for what came next. Charlie had hinted that Reuben was feeling stifled. Was he right about everything he had said? Sal walked into the reception area and saw the duty manager approaching him. The manager looked serious as he got closer. "Mr. Calzone, I've been told you missed the day trip." Sal shook his head and smiled. "Nope. I left something in my room. By the time I returned to the minibus, they had already left without me. My wife will be upset when she hears about it." The manager's face did not change. It was clear he was not happy. "This is a serious breach of our rules. I've already warned you." Sal raised his hand to pause the conversation and gently placed it on the man's arm. "I think I have a suggestion, Mr. Jacobs. I am Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, I believe we can find a solution that works for both of us. Do you have a private place for us to talk?" Mr. Jacobs let him. Sal lifted a finger to make his point clear. "I'm an adult. As I've shown you over the last few days, I can make my own decisions, and I haven't even started yet." He kept his hand up, stopping the manager from speaking. "But I'm not here to argue. I want to enjoy myself, create happy memories, and savor good food." Sal nodded slowly, watching for a change in Mr. Jacobs's expression, and noticed a look of understanding begin to form. "I think you understand my position, Mr. Jacobs. If I help you, your duties become easier. Likewise, you can help me, and we can keep this between us." He noticed a small smile from Mr. Jacobs. "What do you want, Mr. Calzone?" "I would like to have dinner tonight from the gold menu." "I can't allow that, Mr. Calzone. It's not possible." "Actually, you can. You're in charge here. I trust you can make that happen. You need to choose meals that fit your group's needs. People can't see someone eating the wrong food. It would upset the flow. Okay, how about this? I eat from the gold menu, and I can do it early before the restaurant gets busy. I'll sit outside by myself. Then tomorrow I'll join whatever trip my wife has planned." The risk felt real. She might say or do something that would set him off. It seemed wise to limit his time with her and hide his worries. Ideally, he hoped to find that he had nothing to worry about and that there were no signs of trouble. If he spoke carelessly, thinking she was guilty when she was innocent, it could harm their marriage. In the worst case, if his gut feeling was right and she was being unfaithful, it would be very serious. He was not someone who could easily forgive such a betrayal. If she had been with another man during their time together, their marriage would likely end. He knew she would understand that response. There would be no confusion. Their past made that clear. If it came to that, it would be better to keep his thoughts to himself instead of confronting her directly. No matter how he thought about it, it was best to stay unaware, to watch carefully, and to think about how he could find proof. He decided not to join them for dinner that evening after his meal. Instead, he looked forward to a walk on the beach. This would be a good time to talk to a friend whose thoughts on the matter would be helpful. To call her, he'd need to be away from the resort so he could use his phone without interruption. He planned to stroll down the beach, taking his time and enjoying the evening. It would give him space. Alice moved to greet him with warmth, but he turned slightly, making it just a light gesture on the cheek. He didn't engage more than that. "Are you okay?" Alice asked with concern. Sal nodded distractedly. Alice looked at him with curiosity. He heard Sarah cough behind them. "Now that we've found him, let's get seated. I'm ready to eat," Sarah said, cutting in. Alice turned to the greeter who had approached them. Good evening, ma'am. A table for 4? The greeter asked. Alice nodded. Table for 3. I've already eaten, thanks, Sal said. Alice looked surprised and confused by his response. How? I haven't ordered your meal, she said. I have my ways. I've told you that for a while now. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm heading back to the room. Are you not going to sit with us? She asked. Sal shook his head. Why? To watch you enjoy a meal I can't have? I'd rather not. Before Alice could reply, they heard a sharp comment from someone behind them. See, I'm not the only one who thinks this is an awkward situation. All 4 of them turned to see who had spoken. A couple stood behind them. The man nodded at Reuben like he recognized him. Sal frowned. He was usually good at remembering faces, but this one felt familiar. The woman was someone he'd seen on all the trips he had taken. She was small with a confident air. She appeared to be around his age, attractive with dark brown hair, warm skin, and bright brown eyes. He greeted her, saying, Hey, it seems like our partners are a bit distracted and think they can treat us however they want. She agreed with a nod. It does feel that way. The service here has been frustrating enough, but the support from my husband is what really bothers me. Why isn't he on my side? I know, right? Sal replied. If the tables were turned, I'd want to share the good moments. I'd take Alice on adventures and try to make her vacation enjoyable. I'd expect her to do the same, yet, for some reason, that's not how it is. They both shared a knowing look, both understanding the situation well. But she doesn't seem to notice how I feel about this. She seems to think that if she keeps saying everything is fine, I'll be happy. He leaned in, ready to speak quietly, but made sure everyone could hear him. I think she's taking me for granted. Exactly, the woman replied. It's not just how poorly the resort treats us, it's that he's okay with it. Why does he get to enjoy everything while I'm sent on trips he picked out for me? Why doesn't he want to spend time with me? It almost feels intentional, doesn't it? Sal suggested. By the way, did you enjoy today? Your little getaway made me smile. Sal nodded. Yeah, I went to the capital and visited some family there. That sounds much more fun than our trip to the distillery. The most exciting part for us was when you got off the coach, she said with a grin, her happy. Does your husband do that for you? The laughter he got in reply was cheerful. He noticed Reuben's face. He didn't seem happy about the friendly chat between his wife and Sal. Sal, you might get in trouble if you don't go, Alice warned. Don't worry, I've told you I'll be on tomorrow's trip. You don't have to worry about me being in the way. Please, keep Reuben here. He saw Reuben smile at his words. I'll see you tomorrow on the coach, he said to the lady. He turned and walked out, hearing the greeter chatting with his wife. He didn't look back. He felt frustrated with himself. He should have handled it better. He should have been more patient. Now she would see he was upset. As he walked back to the room, he shook his head. After a quick shower, he changed into fresh clothes. Once he felt refreshed, he looked around the room and spotted his laptop and camera bag. He rearranged the furniture a bit, opened his laptop, and carefully adjusted the screen. He logged in and changed the camera settings to match how he liked them. He was a photographer, experienced in news photography. He had set up secret filming operations with his journalist friends, finding ways to capture images without being noticed. This was his job. It came naturally to him. After he set up the laptop, he headed out of the room. While he was out, he wanted to see if everything was working as it should. He left his room and carefully placed his ring in a safe spot, knowing he might be followed and not wanting anyone to track him. He strolled down to the beach and passed by the reception area, where he spotted Mr. Jacobs. I just want to say thanks. I appreciate your help. It was thoughtful given the situation, he said. He noticed Mr. Jacobs puff up a bit, just the response he expected. Just to let you know, I'll be going on that trip tomorrow. I keep my promises. Your willingness to be flexible really made a difference. Sal smiled at him and then continued on his way. He had a certain charm about him. His parents had a strong love for one another. They relied on this love during tough times in a challenging neighborhood. What they lacked in money, they made up for with care. With 5 older sisters, finances were tight. They always had enough food. He mowed lawns, raked leaves, and cleaned gutters, always ready to take on any job that could bring in some cash. He got good at seeing chances and being in the right place at the right time. This skill served him well when he decided to become a photographer, as he learned how to create good deals for everyone involved. He enjoyed connecting his needs with others' needs to create mutual benefit. It made him happy when these connections happened smoothly. When both sides got what they wanted, it felt like building a bridge. A delicate bridge, but a bridge nonetheless. Once that connection was made, he worked to make it stronger, and he found joy in that process. He rarely accepted no from people. He was persistent and kept trying, not by being forceful, but by understanding the reasons behind the no and figuring out what changes would lead to a maybe or yes. He liked being the underdog and making a comeback. That was how he felt during this vacation. He had been feeling down, trying to grasp why he was unhappy and why support from his wife felt lacking. Charlie's words had affected him deeply, leaving him with a heavy heart. But bit by bit, he was beginning to feel better. He had his phone for communication, and they didn't know that. He had a driver who could help him find a way out, and they weren't aware of that either. He was building a connection with someone new, an ally, even if it was a cautious one, and they didn't see it coming. Tomorrow, he would spend the day with her, moving from being strangers to friends in just one day. They didn't realize what was happening. Most importantly, he understood the situation clearly. This wasn't just by chance. Trading his active role in trips for better food showed him this. The resort wanted him to take part in activities. He started to see that not being there made a difference. While he didn't have all the answers, Charlie's thoughts had opened his mind. He needed to look into this more. He walked along the beach, rounding a bend and moving out of sight from the resort. The cool sea breeze felt nice on a pleasant evening on the empty beach. He enjoyed the calming sound of the waves gently hitting the shore, mixed with the calls of birds in the warm air. 20 minutes later, he took out his phone to check for a signal. Scrolling through his contacts, he picked the person he most wanted to talk to and dialed. It rang a few times, and he started to worry he might have called at a bad time when he heard her voice. Flash. Hey, Snoopy! You can't imagine how great it is to hear you, and you might not believe me if I told you. Keep the sweet talk coming, and I might stay on the line long enough to hear it all. Sal chuckled. How's your vacation in paradise? Ready to face the struggles back home yet? Wait, what if this is your only chance to ask for help? Am I your go-to, Flash? Snoops, you have no idea how much I've missed you. If you were here, I'd give you the biggest hug. Baby doll, if I knew I could get a hug from you, I'd be there already. You're known for being stingy with your hugs. As soon as he heard her voice, the knot of worry in his stomach started to loosen. He felt like he had someone on his side now. There was someone to support him, someone who could help him think and lift his spirits when he needed it. Trust me, Snoopy, if you were here, I'd be giving you a big squeeze right now. So why are you talking to me instead of your wife? What's going on, Flasharoonie? I really don't know. Seriously, I'm in a bit of a jam here. It feels strange, and I wanted to chat with someone I trust to see what they think. And I'm the one you trust? Flash, I never knew you felt this way about me. This could change everything for us. I appreciate the jokes, but I really need your advice. Please think carefully about what I'm saying because this is really confusing me. Okay, give me a moment. All right, go ahead. Use simple words. You know the rules. Keep it straightforward. I might take a little longer to understand things. Sal laughed again. Snoopy was a colleague at the New York Times, a journalist and an investigative reporter, and they often worked together. They were of a similar age and had always got along well. He called her Snoopy, not just because of the cartoon dog, but also for her knack for finding stories, patiently digging until she revealed the truth. He was Flash to her Snoopy, a reference to his quick photography skills. They worked together to expose a landlord who was taking advantage of illegal immigrant tenants. Their teamwork helped showcase the situation, gather proof, and create a strong story about a serious issue. At one point, one of the landlord's associates confronted Snoopy. After a warning that she didn't take seriously, Sal stepped in to protect her. His quick action led to some light-hearted teasing from their co-workers, which strengthened their professional bond. Depending on what was needed, Sal took on different tasks, covering events from social gatherings to sports matches or taking photos of court cases. Snoopy always tried to bring him along when she needed a photographer, and outside of work, she often sought his advice. He enjoyed her company and would happily share a coffee with her when things were quiet. Okay, This might sound a little strange and it's kind of embarrassing, so please be nice to me, all right? I'm really worried right now with some alarms ringing in my head, a lack of evidence, and too many doubts. That sounds odd for someone on vacation with his wife in a Caribbean resort. Tell me more, I'm all ears. All right, so I'm on holiday with Alice, her sister Sarah, and her husband Reuben. Alice and Sarah booked the trip online, and it wasn't cheap. We have 2 weeks here, and I've been here for 5 days already. He paused for a moment, trying to collect his thoughts to be as clear as he could. Snoopy listened quietly, encouraging him. When we got to the airport, we arrived with other guests, and we all took a minibus to the resort. Everything seemed normal so far. Before we left, there were some health forms. Alice and Sarah had to see a doctor for some vaccinations, but since mine were current, I didn't need any. When we reached the resort, everything went quickly. They asked us to hand over our mobile phones and other devices. Okay. Sal could sense her concern. I know, I've never experienced that before, so I took the SIM card out of my phone and gave them the device. Smart move? Did they notice? No one questioned me, so I guess they didn't. I didn't mention my laptop because I see it as work-related, not something I use for communication. Clever. I assume you got another phone to call me? You catch on quickly. Funny guy. Please continue. So I gave them my phone but kept the SIM card while everyone else handed over theirs. Next, we were given these rings. They act like keys that let us move around the resort and access different rooms. I got a black ring, Reuben got a pink ring, and the girls received gold rings. Why are they different? I asked the same thing. I was told they were given out randomly to our group and we can't trade them. With my black ring, I have basic access around the resort. That's too bad for you. I know, right? The pink ring has a few more perks, but the girls enjoy all the extra benefits without having to pay. That's really not fair. It gets worse. There are some areas of the resort I can't visit, but Allie and Sarah can go wherever they want. They can attend special events that I can't, enjoy a wider menu, and decide what I eat from my limited options. That seems unfair. Yep, especially since she won't share her meals. I have to stick to what my ring allows. I'm enjoying my meal while she's having a better one. What I can eat isn't my choice. It's up to her. So, how do you get a better ring? Can you buy one or pay extra? Nope. The ring you get is the one you keep. No trades, no upgrades, no refunds. That could create problems at home, huh? For sure. I wouldn't treat her like this, but I'm stuck with it. Even Reuben has a better situation than I do. Sounds a bit odd. I understand there are different service levels, but it feels like your wife and her sister put you on a lower tier. I asked her, and she denied it completely. What else is happening? There are different activities each day. Do they depend on the ring? Yep. My wife decides what I do, and every day I'm sent on various outings, like trips to places of interest, fishing, and tours of historic sites. Sounds fun. I have to go or I catch heat. She stays at the resort. After a few days of fussing, I finally refused to go, and she joined me for one trip, which turned out to be lovely. Exactly what I expected from our vacation. We had a great time together, but since then, it's back to me going alone. How long do these outings last? All day. That seems a bit strange. Yeah, Reuben's been with me, but he's pretty much the only one with a pink ring on the outings. Sarah hasn't gone on any trips, and I've only seen Allie with me on one outing. Other than that, nothing. What do they do at the resort while you're out? Spa treatments? Relaxing in the sun? Mingling with other gold ring holders, I guess? They don't say much, and when I ask, I just get vague replies. Have you thought that you might be getting the better part of the deal? I did, but that's not what I want. I wanted to spend time with my wife, enjoying our vacation together, not being separated while she hangs out with her sister. I get that. But after a few days, I got really frustrated and said I wouldn't go unless she joined me. She wouldn't, so I decided to explore the city on my own. I call it a city. It's their capital, but it feels more like a big town. That's impressive. You seem to have a knack for this. Don't forget it. When I returned, the hotel staff was upset with me, and so was she. The next day, she came with me, but then left again, and that's where we stand now. That sounds annoying. I would leave a less than stellar review online and share my thoughts there. But you should talk to Alice about how she's treating you. It's not fair. I'm surprised she's acting like this. She should be supportive. I know. I thought this trip would help us reconnect and fix things between us, but that hasn't happened yet. Got it. Are you feeling better? Yeah, I think so. Thanks, Snoop. This really helped. The phone went quiet for a few moments as they both reflected on the conversation. Hey, Flash? Yes? What are you leaving out? Sal paused and took a deep breath. When I took some time away and went into town, I had my camera with me. I wandered around taking pictures and came across a wedding. Everyone loves a wedding. Exactly, and I'm one of them. I joined in and captured some nice moments. Then today, when Allie tried to convince me to go on the trip, I skipped out and looked up the wedding party. I made an album of the photos and gave it to them. That's really kind of you. Thanks. I connected a bit with the father of the bride, and he mentioned some interesting things about the resort, apparently. Sal hesitated, gathering his thoughts. Apparently, the gold rings have their secrets. The pink rings are aware and accepting, while the black rings don't know. The phone fell silent. Snoop, I don't know what to do. I'm confused about everything, and it's hard. He felt a lump in his throat, but pushed through it. After a moment, Snoopy spoke softly, her tone serious. Sal, I'm really sorry. I care about you, and there are many people, including me, who love you and want to support you. Thank you for opening up. It matters a lot. Are you safe? Is there any threat? No, I'm okay and don't feel any danger. The struggle I'm facing feels more emotional than anything. Do you have a plan for the next few days? Something to give you time to think? Yeah, I'm going to go on the trip tomorrow. I'll stay away tonight and head to bed late. If Alice says anything, I'll keep it calm. Right now, I just feel unhappy about how I've been treated. Stick to that plan. It makes sense. Taking a step back will help us both figure out what to do next. One last question. What if she goes elsewhere? If she goes elsewhere, or if she ever has, it's over. She knew how important trust was to him. Snoop, can I call you at the same time tomorrow? I'm really glad you reached out to me, he replied. Me too. See you tomorrow, Snoopy. Tomorrow, Flasher. He hung up, feeling grateful to have someone to talk to. It felt good not to be alone in this. He knew he had to handle his situation, but it was comforting to have support. He had plans and was putting them together. As he walked along slowly, deep in thought, he felt ready for tomorrow. He would spend time with his new friend and learn more about her. She seemed smart and quick-witted, and he hoped she could become his ally. He just needed to make sure Ruben didn't get brought into this, though he had a feeling Ruben wouldn't want that. One thing bothered him, her husband. Could he trust her, knowing who her husband was? It was odd that they didn't think he'd pick up on it. He hadn't said anything to Snoop. She had enough on her plate. But he planned to keep an eye out, just in case her husband appeared again. He looked out at the sea and considered renting a boat to take pictures. It was a good idea. Capturing interesting sights could be a fun adventure, even if he didn't expect any major drama. He remembered how he had thought about using a camera in his room, but decided that wouldn't be needed if no one went in there. Still, having more options couldn't hurt. He walked a bit more, and then sat down to enjoy the view. It felt nice to be away from home. They had two places, a city apartment and a suburban house. They stayed in the house, but he spent part of the week at the apartment for work. He owned the apartment and had lived there since leaving his parents' home. He liked the neighborhood. It was changing and improving, like many parts of New York. He had taken out a mortgage because he wanted to own rather than rent, and he was pleased with his choice. It was small, but worked well for him. He was paying it off more quickly by using his weekend earnings to chip away at the debt. He was still making payments, but only had a little left. In 5 years, he would be done with it. When they got married, Alice wanted to be near her family in the suburbs. The idea of living in the busy city didn't appeal to her. It was too loud and hectic for everyday life. She longed for a peaceful place to relax. They found a middle ground. Living in the suburbs would be better for Alice, though it meant he'd have to commute a few times a week and balance it with stays in the apartment. She could use that time to visit her family and enjoy being with them. He wouldn't have to worry about his work hours affecting her life. He had enough money for their bills and to share the house costs. Since she came from a wealthy background, the house was not a financial burden for her. The ownership of the house was outlined in their prenuptial agreement. He would keep his belongings because they weren't seen as shared property, while she would keep the house. Her father wanted to ensure his daughter's wealth was protected, so he insisted on a prenup. Sal didn't mind. He had a lawyer look it over to make sure it was fair. Once he received assurance, he signed it eagerly, hoping for a marriage like his parents, one with a partner to build a family with. He couldn't remember if the agreement mentioned anything about loyalty, so he decided to check later. It was just another detail to think about, he mused. He shook his head and turned his attention to the sounds around him. Looking around, he admired the fading light and the colors of the evening sky. Standing up from the sand, he started walking back to the resort. The day was ending, and he wanted to avoid being in an unfamiliar place when it got dark. He walked back at a steady pace and reached the resort before night fully fell. Checking the time, he saw he was a bit ahead of schedule, so he decided to stop by the restaurant area where the bar was. He ordered a beer and found a quiet spot to sit and enjoy the evening atmosphere. When he felt ready to head back to his room, he returned his glass to the bar and thanked the bartender. Small gestures mattered. Kind words and good manners made a difference. He realized he might be the only customer who had connected with the bartender that night. He had learned the importance of being thoughtful long ago. Getting his ring from where he kept it, he entered the suite. It was empty, and he figured Alice was with her sister. Since it was late, he felt relaxed getting ready for bed. He set out his clothes for the next day, moved his laptop, and organized the camera equipment he wanted for their upcoming trip. Soon he was under the covers. Though he felt tired, sleep didn't come easily. The emotional weight of recent events lingered in his mind. He loved Alice and was committed to their marriage. He didn't doubt her loyalty or feel like he needed to protect himself. Trust was vital in their relationship. His job often took him away for several nights each week. He knew that if Alice chose to stray, it wouldn't be very difficult for her. He didn't check in on her because he was away from home a lot and wasn't usually suspicious. After all, why get married if there were trust issues? Whenever he had a problem with Alice, he talked about it right away and then moved on, not thinking about the past. This week had been tough. He never thought the vacation would turn out like this. Being away from Alice, who seemed fine with everything and even supportive, caught him off guard. He thought she would want to spend time with him on their trip, not with Sarah. It felt like he was being pushed aside and forced to spend time with Reuben. He hadn't gone over their vacation plans in detail ahead of time, thinking it would be like past trips where they enjoyed each other's company and saw friends whenever they wanted. The way Alice was acting surprised him and made him uncomfortable. At first, he thought he was just imagining things and blamed the resort for how he felt. But when he took a moment to think, he realized something was wrong. It felt like Alice was not fully on his side as they faced the world together. Despite her friendly words, her actions suggested something else. Sal wasn't sure where their relationship stood. He loved her a lot, but her behavior made him feel hurt and confused. He couldn't help but wonder what was really going on. Doubting her felt as troubling as her actions. On top of that, Charlie had made comments about cheating, and the resort had a bad reputation. Sal knew he needed to find out more and understand what was happening. While he looked into it, he was careful not to say or do anything that could harm their relationship. That would be a big mistake if she was innocent. So he decided to keep his distance from her and her friends while he sought the truth. He called for help and made plans he hadn't thought of before. It was painful not knowing what was going on or why Alice was acting this way. Nothing he came up with made sense. As far as he knew, their marriage was strong and everything was fine between them. They shared a good connection and still enjoyed being together. So what was really happening? He fell asleep. He didn't notice when she came in, but when he woke up in the morning, she was next to him, peacefully sleeping. He got up quietly, trying not to wake her. She looked calm, with some of her blonde hair falling over her face. He hoped this was all just a misunderstanding, that he was being too worried. He didn't want to think about a life without her. For him, it was clear what would happen if trust was broken. There would be no question about what counted as a betrayal. If she had done something she wouldn't feel comfortable talking about openly with him or her family, it would mean the end of their relationship. He thought about whether he could forgive and let go, and honestly, it was an easy choice for him. He realized he couldn't go on like this. He cared a lot about commitment and had high expectations for himself and their relationship. Quietly, he prepared for the day. He wanted to be early for the trip but needed a light breakfast first. He picked up his camera bag, made sure his laptop worked, and then gently opened the door to step outside into the cool morning air. This cool weather wouldn't last long. The sun was already heating things up. He grabbed some fruit and a coffee and sat on the porch, watching the calm sea meet the empty beach. A man was busy cleaning the shoreline. He walked to the meeting spot for the trip, hoping that neither Alice nor Reuben would show up. The idea of spending the day with them felt a bit overwhelming. Gradually, more people arrived. When the minibus came, they checked in. He chose a middle seat by the window, wishing for a moment of peace before they set off. 10 anxious minutes went by, but neither Alice nor Reuben showed up. The doors closed, and the guide walked down the bus to make sure everyone was there. Happy with the count, he quickly moved to the front, and the driver began to go. He settled in, watching the scenery go by as they drove. The minibus stopped at a little dock where he and the others got off, waiting to be directed onto the boat. They were going to a small island nearby, known for its peaceful beauty. He planned to take some photos there. As he stood, he felt a hand on his arm. "Hey, Mr. Escapologist, what are you doing here?" "Hey!" Sal smiled when he heard her voice. He had hoped she would be on the trip. He hadn't seen her, even though he had been looking for her. "I promised I would come. My promises matter to me." "Your promise is your word, right?" "Exactly. When we say something, we should do our best to keep it. And when we make a promise, we should follow through?" "Absolutely. So I'm curious, what made you promise to come today after trying to avoid it?" "Let's see how today goes, and I might tell you later." He looked down, and she smiled back at him. "My name is Salvatore Calzone, but everyone calls me Sal." "Hi, Sal. I'm Lucienne Frost." "Lucienne, that's a lovely name. I like it." She smiled at his compliment. "Everyone usually calls me Lucy. Do you want me to call you that, or do you prefer Lucienne?" "Either works, whatever feels best." "You have a bit of a southern accent." "I was born in Texas and now live near Boston, so my accent has softened a little." "You sound a bit nostalgic." She shook her head, her dark curls bouncing. "No, not really. I do miss the warmth, the friendliness, the food, and just listening to the way people talk. But I wanted to get away. I grew up in a small village and dreamed of the big city with all its excitement and energy." "Do you find that in Boston?" She shook her head again, a bit more firmly. "Not really. Life is often about making trade-offs. One day you realize you're living a life different from what you pictured." Sal laughed. Then someone came over to guide them onto a small boat. They found a cozy spot to sit and continue their chat. "So, what's in the bag? I've noticed you carrying it." "It's a camera with some extra tools." "Oh, nice," she said as he opened the bag for her to see. Everything was neatly arranged, making it easy for him to find what he needed. "It's not fancy. I didn't want to bring an expensive camera since I wasn't sure how much it would handle during travel. The case is good, but not perfect." "This isn't a good camera." He could see she was surprised. "No, it is a good camera. A great all-rounder. I can take portraits, landscapes, and it works with different lenses." He showed her some of the lenses as he spoke. He zipped the bag again. "This is a great choice when I'm unsure about what I'll want to capture. If I knew exactly what I wanted, another camera might be better. This one fits many situations and is quite sturdy." "So you're a photographer?" Sal chuckled. "Kind of obvious, right?" "Yes, I work as a photographer for the New York Times." "Wow, that's impressive, the New York Times. That's a great job, Mr. Calzone." Sal smiled at her light teasing. "I'm sorry if I came off as bragging." "That's okay. I admire that you're proud of where you work, and rightly so. They're one of the best in the world at what they do." Sal felt proud. He valued his job at the Times. "So, what do you do?" "I work with sound." "You work with sound? That sounds interesting. What do you do with it?" "I'm a sound engineer. I help venues get the best audio from different performers in their spaces." "Is there a lot of work in that?" "Oh, yes. I have more work than I can handle. It's a unique job, and not many people do what we do, so we can pick and choose our projects." Sal asked, "Do you have any children?" He noticed a hint of sadness on her face as she shook her head. "I'm sorry. That was a thoughtless question. I can see it wasn't the best to ask." She placed her hand gently on his. "It's okay. It's just a tough subject for me and my husband." Sal remained quiet. He had learned over the years when to give someone space. After a moment, she continued, I come from a big, close family. I want that for myself. My husband wants kids too, but it never seems like the right time. Yeah, I understand. I feel like I'm talking to someone just like me. My partner has said we can start thinking about children after this trip. Lucienne looked at him with curiosity. I know, Sal added, seeing her face. Right now, I'm not sure how things will change for us after this holiday. But still, Sal shook his head. She has always wanted to focus on her job first, to reach a certain point before considering kids. She thought it was best to wait until she was 30. Now we're nearly 35, and having kids feels more like a wish than a plan. It's tough, isn't it? Time keeps moving, and it seems there's no rush on their part. We have a saying at work. At the New York Times? Yes, at the New York Times. Thanks for remembering. Lucienne smiled playfully at him. We call it longing off. It means we plan to do something eventually, but not anytime soon. I like that. I think that's exactly how I'm feeling. I'm longing off too. Could you be happy in 10 years if you don't have kids? Lucienne looked serious and paused. I don't think I can. I know I want children. I feel the same way. If this trip doesn't change anything for us, I want to see some real progress on having kids in the next 6 months. I want to stop taking my birth control and start really trying. An awkward silence filled the space between them. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring us down, Sal said softly. Don't apologize. Sometimes a tough question helps us see things more clearly. I know I have a lot to think about. As they reached the island, they stayed close to each other. They gathered their picnic things and drinks, checked in with the organizer, and then set off together. Sal was having a great day. He found Lucienne funny, bright, and easy to talk to. They shared similar values, which made their conversation flow effortlessly. He took his camera out and spent the day chatting with her, sitting together and capturing moments. His favorite part was before they headed back to the boat. They visited some old ruins on a cliff, and he took many photos of her in the sunlight. The light shining through her yellow dress made the pictures look warm and inviting. Though she was fully dressed, the way the light hit her created a lovely effect. Did you get the photos you wanted, honey? Lucienne asked. Sal showed her the pictures he had taken. Wow, that dress looks amazing in the photos. I don't think it's too much. They just highlight your natural beauty. Oh, you're sweet. You think I'm beautiful? Sal chuckled at her playful tone. It's not just an opinion. You really are stunning. She was, with her soft, dark brown curly hair, sparkling dark brown eyes, and smooth olive skin. She was lovely. Slightly shorter than Sal, she looked fit and healthy. He couldn't help but admire her throughout the day. Thank you, honey. I loved today. It was a real joy to spend it with you. Same here, Lou. This has been the best day of my holiday so far. Her bright smile lit up her face as they walked back to the boat together. Let me edit the photos and I'll happily share them with you if you want. Absolutely. You see things that I sometimes miss. I feel like I'm seeing things in a narrow view. Yeah, I get that. Recent events have made me feel that way too. Lucienne studied him for a moment. Sal, I don't want to upset you, but I've noticed you seem a bit preoccupied today. If you want to talk about it, I'm here to listen when you're ready. Sal looked at her and nodded. Thank you. That's a kind offer. Once they reached the resort and got off the bus, he said, I'm going to find something good to eat. Would you like to join me? Lucienne paused to think. I think my husband would rather I stay with him. I can't imagine he'd be okay with me dining with someone else. Sal was about to thank her for the wonderful day when she continued, but never mind that. I really enjoyed today. Show me a move, honey. Sal smiled and walked over to Mr. Jacobs, who had nodded to him as he came in. Good afternoon, Mr. Jacobs. How are you today? Mr. Jacobs smiled back. I'm good, Mr. Calzone. I'm really doing well. Did you enjoy your day out? Yeah, I did, Sal replied, looking around. I had great company. It was a nice day. I'm glad to hear that. You know tomorrow will be different, right? How so? For the next 3 days, you black rings will get to experience the gold ring lifestyle. Sal's surprise was clear. I know, isn't it great? What's the catch, Mr. J? The man laughed loudly. Why does there have to be a catch, Mr. Calzone? Sal, please just call me Sal. The man nodded. So what's the catch? For the next 3 days, the gold rings will be away on their own adventures. Pink rings will take care of the gold rings. The black rings will remain here and enjoy all the services of the resort. The food, spa treatments, everything. But the gold rings will be gone? Yep, no gold rings around. Sounds good, right? Well, Mr. J, this could be your lucky day. My lucky day? Yes, your lucky day. The reward for my good behavior over the next 3 days while my charming wife is away is 2 gold meals. 2 gold meals? But you'll have 3 days of gold meals. If you want me to keep to myself and not disturb the gold rings, from your reaction I can tell my offer interests you. So the price is 2 gold meals tonight, same as last night. We'll eat out on the veranda and no one will notice. I don't know, Sal. That seems like a steep price since you're getting 3 days of fancy treatment. Think of it as an investment. I can be a bit distracting, especially away from the resort. I promise not to interrupt their time away. That's the price for the 2 meals. Your choice. The man smiled. We don't negotiate with our guests, Sal. That's not how this works. Sal shrugged. Okay. He started to walk away but was called back. I'll take your offer. Go to the veranda and I hope you both enjoy your meals. Sal smiled at Lucienne. Follow me, ma'am. Your table is ready. What did you just do? Are we having one of the special meals? Yep, we need to sit out on the veranda. And you can't tell anyone, especially your husband, how I got it or that we had the nice food. This is what you did yesterday, right? I never thought of that. I'm too good at following the rules. You did your little trick again and traded your good behavior for amazing food. Sal grinned. I've got my ways, what can I say? Honey, after spending a day with you, I'm impressed again. Let's have dinner. I'm sorry I can't change into something nicer for you. Don't change a thing. You're perfect just the way you are. They walked into the restaurant and were led to a table on the veranda. They looked at the menu and chose their meals, asking the waiter to suggest pairings for the different courses. Sal felt happy. He had enjoyed his day with Lucienne just as much as the previous day with Alice. Given what he was dealing with, he was surprised he had any kind of day at all, let alone a good one. He still wasn't sure if he could trust her completely. He decided to share a bit of his thoughts. This could be a test, and if Alice found out about it, he'd know where he stood. I have to make a call after we're done here. Lucienne's curiosity was immediately sparked. Who are you calling, and how are you doing that? I've got my ways, Sal said with a grin. I have a mobile phone. Do you need to call anyone, or are you good? I can't think of anyone. I'd like to call my sister, but I usually just complain about this place and the way Donald treats me, and she's heard enough of it. Not very patient, I take it? No, she thinks I should leave him. She didn't like that he has been unfaithful and believes I should just move on. Now, when I talk about him, I can tell what she thinks even if she doesn't say it. Sounds like she cares. You don't think I should stay with Donald? I don't know him or your relationship well, Luce, but I think you deserve better than someone who doesn't treat you well. That's easy to say when it's not your marriage. Sal could hear her frustration. He took a deep breath. That's what's been on my mind, Lucienne. It's my marriage, and I'm finding it hard. She reached across the table and placed her hand on his. I'm sorry, can you talk about it? Would that help, or do you want to distract yourself from it? Sal laughed. That's a clever question. I'm going to remember that. Discussing it might be tough. Why is that? It could involve more than just my wife. Oh. Lucienne paused for a moment, thinking. Are you trying to keep me out of it? I don't know. There might be something that worries me. That's what the call is for tonight. Trying to think through some options. Who are you talking to? Snoopy. I like that name. Can she help? She's an investigative journalist and one of the smartest people I know. I talked to her yesterday and told her everything. She asked for a call tonight to think things over. Can you explain it to me? Just then, the waiter arrived with their first course, interrupting their conversation. Promise me you won't do anything rash. I need time to think this through, and I'm worried you might jump to a conclusion and act on it. I promise. I won't do anything. Okay, so quick version. Remember I skipped the excursion? Well, the first time I went to the city, I spent the day taking photos. One day I found a wedding that needed a photographer, so I decided to help them out. That was kind of you, Lucienne said. Sal shrugged. I used to do wedding photography to earn some money. I still do a few each year to stay sharp and make a little extra, so it was an easy task. Their wedding was lively and colorful, quite different from the usual ones I see. He paused to enjoy his meal for a bit. After I left yesterday, I put together an album of the photos. I went to the father of the bride, a guy named Charlie. He welcomed me when I arrived. I handed him the album, and he was really happy. Everyone in the neighborhood came by to check it out. "Sounds nice so far. What's the twist?" Lucienne asked. "Well, he discovered where I'm staying and seemed a bit worried. Not angry, but like I had taken something important from him, you know?" Lucienne smiled, understanding his feelings. "He told me we're at a resort that has some unusual customs. The gold rings are for those who join in. The pink rings know about it but don't join. And the black rings are kept in the dark so our partners can enjoy without us knowing." "That's hard to believe," Lucienne replied. "Yeah, I was surprised too. I've always trusted Ali, and she's never hinted at anything like this. I talked to Charlie, and he explained it more." Sal looked into Lucienne's eyes as he spoke. "I can't be sure he's telling the truth, but it could explain some things here." Feeling a bit mixed up, I went for a walk last night and talked with Snoops. I needed to get my thoughts out. The waiter returned, pausing their conversation to clear the table and ask if they enjoyed their meal. Once he left, Sal went on. "I don't have proof yet, but I plan to find out what's really going on before I leave." "Ah, so that's why you went on the trip," Lucienne said. Sal nodded. "Two reasons. It was a good excuse to take a break from Alice. I don't fully trust myself around her." He looked at Lucienne. "I'm not someone who would hurt anyone, so you don't need to worry. I just want to be ready before I talk to her instead of acting on impulse." "That's smart. Also, I got to turn my good behavior of going on the trip into a chance for some great food. 2 wins. Plus, I got to spend the day with you, which I've really enjoyed." "Do you believe Charlie?" Lucienne asked, curious. Sal shrugged. "I don't know. He seemed sincere, and I could see he didn't want to tell me. Honestly, I think I believe him now. At first, I didn't, but his explanation lines up with some things I've noticed. I need to find proof. I'm not going to make any big choices based only on what Charlie said. Ali deserves more than that." Lucienne reached over and gently touched the back of his hand. "I'm sorry. This must be hard for you. Figuring out what to do has been pretty clear. It's dealing with the feelings that's tough. I don't want to believe it, but something inside me says it's true. I'm having a hard time with that. On top of everything, I just can't understand it. All I keep asking is how? Why? When did it start? Is my whole marriage a lie? There are just so many questions." "Sweetheart, you've done well so far. I've noticed something is bothering you. You seem distant sometimes. You are here with me, but not really with me. I don't know if I could stay calm like you, so what's next?" "Finish dinner with you, enjoying each moment. After that, I'll talk to Snoopy. She might have some ideas if she's not flying down here right now." "Will she do that?" Lucienne asked with a smile. "If she thinks there's a big story and that I need help, then yes, she might already be on her way. I love her name. It's very unique. Does it relate to her work?" Sal nodded. "Exactly. So if you call her Snoopy, what does she call you?" "No one else calls me that, just her. She calls me Flash." "I see. That's a clever name, thinking about what you do." "Exactly. Honestly, I don't know what I'm hoping to hear from her. Hopefully she can think clearly and guide me on what to do next." "What if Charlie is right and you find proof of unfaithfulness? Can you move on from that?" Sal shook his head. "No way. I guess I'm not that strong. For me, trust means everything. If that happened, I'd want to end the marriage as quickly as I could." "No chance for a second chance?" Sal shook his head. "Sweetheart, I thought the same way before Donald was unfaithful. I didn't know it at first. He might have been unfaithful for a while. I believed our marriage was over." "Why didn't you end it? I don't want to pry, but—" "Don't worry. Look, here comes the waiter." Their main dishes were served, and the waiter explained them. Sal picked up his wine glass and gently clinked it in a toast. "To the truth." Lucienne smiled and repeated the toast. The food was as good as it looked, and they both enjoyed their meal. During the main course, they decided not to talk about their marriages or the resort. Instead, they chose to enjoy the view, the quiet, and the delicious food. "Do you have room for dessert?" Sal asked, knowing it would be hard for anyone to say no after such great courses. They ordered dessert, and then Lucienne spoke. "Sweetheart, sometimes they can make you doubt yourself and feel like it's your fault. They let you down and damage the marriage, but after putting in so much effort, you don't want to walk away and admit it was all for nothing. Is that what really happened?" Lucienne nodded. "Alice will likely try to downplay what she's done. She might blame you, saying you weren't around enough or that she was just curious. She'll create confusion to make you second-guess your choices, making it seem like a small issue. She can try. Stay strong, don't give in. You deserve so much more than someone who isn't loyal. I'm really sorry you've had to join our group. I might be overreacting. Let's hope not. I've experienced this and it's tough. Will you leave Donald if it turns out to be true? This isn't the first time, but it seems like a pattern. I'm not sure. Part of me wants to. I want my self-respect back, but another part of me feels scared." "Scared?" She nodded. "Better the devil you know. I don't know if you understand, but he's not the worst husband. He has his flaws. He can be a bit demanding. But there are much worse out there. I have a good life, and I'm respected in my community. I have a lot to lose." Sal looked at her, trying to process what he was hearing. "Don't you think you deserve more? A husband who will be true to you? Don't you think you have more to gain than to lose?" Lucienne nodded. "Yes, I'd like that. But what if it gets worse for me? If I leave Donald, how will I manage? Will my friends still support me if I'm the one ending it? He's the one who hasn't kept his promises, not you. You've done nothing wrong. I believe you deserve more than what you're settling for. You're lovely, fun, and smart. I've enjoyed spending time with you." He raised a hand to pause her. "You can find someone who will truly care for you, someone who will treat you with the respect you deserve. Lucienne, you're special. Believe in yourself." She shook her head sadly at his words. The waiter brought desserts to their table, giving them a moment to reflect. "Honey cake, I hope you can stay strong. I hope I can too. I know it's hard to face it. You can think and plan, but when it becomes real, everything feels different. These are the people we love, the ones we've built our lives with. They know our weaknesses, how to persuade us, and how to make us accept what they are doing." They enjoyed their desserts in quiet thought. The silence wasn't awkward. They even shared a spoonful of each other's treats. "Thank you for this, Sal. You really do have skills." "My pleasure. That's what frustrates me about Alice. She knows that if I was really serious, I'd be treating her nicely and making sure she had a good time. There's no way I would treat her like she has treated me." He sighed. "Right. I need to talk to someone. If my friend is correct and the gold rings are away for a few days, can we hang out tomorrow?" His voice had a little hope in it. "Let's leave together. I hope your call goes well. I'm here for you, Sal. You're a good person, too good for this." They thanked the waiter and left the restaurant. As they stepped outside, they spotted Alice, Sarah, and Reuben entering with Donald. Donald moved aside with Lucienne when he saw her, and Sal noticed him talking to her quietly while holding her arm. Sal kept a calm face as he greeted his wife. "Hey, Alice." She came closer to him, trying to show some warmth, but he turned his face a little, staying collected. "I've missed you, Sal. Are you all right?" He shrugged. "You could have spent time with me, but you chose not to." She looked down, avoiding his eyes. "I'm sorry, dear. Our day together on Wednesday was the best part of this trip. It was for me, too. I struggled with how quickly you wanted me out of your way yesterday. I'm sorry it felt that way. I really didn't mean it. I just worried we might get in trouble, and I was having a good time." Sal stood there, quiet. "Are you ready to eat?" she asked, trying to connect with him. He shook his head. "I already ate with Lucienne." "How did you eat without me choosing your food? I thought I had to pick for you." He shrugged. "I found my own way. I didn't like you choosing for me. I can handle myself. We're about to eat. We've been with Donald today. He'll join us for dinner so you can get to know him better." Sal shook his head. "No, I have other things to do." "Sal, I'm worried that we're not spending time together. You seem distant." "You started it, Alice. I wanted to be with you, but you haven't been around. If you make some time, I'll be there with you. We have the rest of the trip. Let's spend tomorrow together." He noticed her expression. "Oh, so you've signed me up for another plan? I thought you were upset that we weren't together, yet you want me to be apart again. What's going on? No, it's not a trip. It's a special experience for the next 3 days. Sal perked up. Oh, cool. We can finally do the things you've liked. That'll be great. Not exactly. I'm sorry, Sal. The twist is that we'll be away for those 3 days. 3 days? Then I don't want it. I would rather have you here and deal with this other stuff. I'm sorry. I thought you'd enjoy the luxury. He shook his head. I'm not sure what's happening, Alice, but something feels wrong. Just eat your dinner and think for a while. I'll join you later for a drink. But really, think about if you want to go, okay? He turned to leave and saw Lucienne and her husband coming back to their group. Hi, I'm Donald. You must be Sal. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Donald walked over to Sal with a friendly smile. He was tall and fit, showing a kind and trustworthy vibe. He was well-dressed and presented himself nicely. Sal decided to ignore him for now and turned back to Alice. I'll give you guys a couple of hours to eat. Then I'll meet you at the bar. Enjoy your meal. The trout is great. He started to walk away, and Lucienne joined him at the door, keeping pace with him. I see why you don't want to leave him. He's quite charming. He heard Lucienne let out a gentle laugh. Are you feeling a bit jealous? He stopped and faced her, feeling a wave of frustration. He seems to have everything. He's tall, handsome, and always looks sharp. It feels like he takes it for granted, while I have to work hard for everything. And you keep giving him chances. Of course I feel envious. What man wouldn't? He walked on, annoyed with himself. Men like him had always bothered him. They had charm and looks, and people seemed to like them easily. It frustrated him to see someone go through life with ease while he felt overlooked. He had met many people like that, and their success seemed very unfair. After a moment, he noticed Lucienne had stopped behind him. He walked back to her and saw she looked sad. Lucienne, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. It was wrong. I'm just letting my frustration show. She looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. He missed her and gently wrapped an arm around her. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you upset. She softly shook her head and leaned on him. He put his other arm around her, feeling her shiver slightly, like she was trying to hold back tears. Unsure of what to do, he stayed still, letting her feel supported. Sweetheart, you didn't upset me. Your words made me think. She wiped her eyes with her hand and stepped back a little. They entered the reception, where Sal was still busy taking care of Mr. Jacobs, or Samuel, as he preferred to be called. I'm going back to my room to get ready. I need to freshen up before joining you all for drinks later, he said. Lucienne smiled at him as they walked out of the reception area together. Just as they were about to part ways, Sal paused and gently took her arm. Luce, I really enjoyed today. I'm not going to ask why you've been so friendly with me. I'm just thankful for your time. He paused for a moment, nodding slightly. Trust means a lot to me. Lucienne opened her mouth to say something, but he shook his head. It's everything to me. I trust easily. That's how I want to live my life. I'll be careful in my work, but if I feel let down, there's no coming back from that. Only one person has ever received a second chance, and I'm starting to wish I hadn't made that choice. Sal, I know. I trust you. You genuinely are not here because of your husband. I understand. Right now, I'm putting my trust in you. I've taken a small risk. I've been honest with you. He smiled at her. Well, mostly honest. I don't know you well, and as much as I like you, this is about my marriage. He looked into her eyes. You haven't let me down yet, but I feel you have some thinking to do about what truly matters to you and who you want to be. He paused, noticing that his words had made an impact. Good, that was his intention. He liked spending time with her and felt a relaxed connection between them. She seemed to enjoy the day as much as he did. He leaned over and gave her a gentle touch on her cheek. See you soon. Sal walked briskly away from her, carefully entering his room and heading for the bathroom. He locked the door and turned on the shower. He pulled out his phone and dialed the same number as the night before. Hey, Snoops. How's my favorite lady? Flashman, I guess your marriage has some issues if I'm your favorite. That's a bit cold. You've always been my favorite. Sure, how are you doing? Ups and downs. I went on the trip today to avoid Ali. I don't trust myself to stay calm around her. Where did you go? There's a small island with some old ruins from a pre-Mayan civilization. It's really beautiful. I took a lot of pictures of the tropical forest if you ever need any. Yeah, living in New York, I could use that. Are we talking about art gallery quality? Maybe. I have someone interested in taking my pictures and selling them, and I'm working on my website. Some of the better ones will be for sale. The wedding shots were better, more like what you'd see in a nice book. Great. Sounds like you've had a nice break from your responsibilities. Good for your mental health, I guess. Not really. It just gave me time to think, which isn't always good. I can overthink things sometimes. Still, I had a nice distraction. Oh, really? Tell me more. Last night before our call, when I was getting frustrated with Alice at the restaurant, I had a conversation with a woman who came in with her husband. She was on the same excursion. She was there, and we spent the day together. That sounds nice. Is she interesting? You mentioned she's married? Yes, she is very much married, and to someone I know. Alice and Co. tried to act like they'd just met him, but I've seen her husband before. It would be quite a coincidence if they met by chance. Snoopy laughed. So you know him, but they don't know you know him? They pretend they don't know him, and today his wife is with you? Seems like they're trying to pull a fast one on you. I had only met that woman the day before, and now she's suddenly all over me. I told her the story Charlie told me and expressed my worries. I also mentioned that I have a phone. Smart move. Do you think she was set up to spy on you? No doubt about it. I took her to a nice place for a meal and treated her well. I told her she could trust me, and now we'll see if she really means it. But just to be careful. You know it. I shared enough so she has some interesting details about me to think over. Now I'm waiting to see if she shares anything. I hope she's honest. Why? Do you like her? Come on, we had a nice day together and she's easy to talk to. She's fun and charming. I liked spending time with her. Flash has a girlfriend, Snoopy teased. I'm married, at least I am for now, and so is she. Right, to Mr. I've seen you before. Exactly. Don't try to set me up just yet. You mentioned your wife's side knows him, but they don't know you know they do. Wait, I'm getting lost trying to follow this. That's right. His name is Donald Frost, and he works in property development in Boston. He went to college with Reuben, was in the same fraternity, and even stood by him at his wedding. I took the photos for that. Keep them in the dark. You have a good memory for faces. You get that when you take pictures often. He stands out and is quite confident. I remember that. Now what do I need to know? First, Flash, darling, just so you know, I'm not alone. Sal sighed. Snoop, you should have told me that. He heard several voices say hello. Sal, I have Ding, Mick, and Sean from legal here with me. Is that okay? Yeah, no problem. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining in. Sal, before we begin, it was a deeper voice. I want to ask if you are sure about this. You're currently married, and you've been together for 10 years. You don't know if she has done anything wrong, but you suspect something. This is an important moment. You have a choice. Please take a moment to think it over. Thanks for that, Mick. I really want to know. I can't be in a marriage where I can't trust the person I'm with. It would eat away at me. I'd rather find out now and deal with the fallout. All right. I wanted to give you a chance to step back. Snoopy, it's your turn. Hey, Sal. I did some digging since it was a quiet day. Sorry, but it seems like it's a specific kind of resort. Hearing that felt like a punch to the gut. He took a deep breath. How sure are you? 100%. I checked their website, but I hit some roadblocks. There's a member area, so I talked to Jason. You know Jason from accounts. I know him. Why did you speak with him? He has an open marriage. Really? I didn't know that. Yeah, he and his wife are part of a certain lifestyle. I thought he might know something, and it turns out he could help me get in there. They think I'm one of them now. Did you put him in a tough spot? He wasn't worried. He visited about 5 years ago. He had a good time, but they went as a couple. He's moved on to other things now. Sal shook his head at what Snoopy said. Okay. So, what did you find out? I learned a lot. I know the schedule. I know how things operate. I even know where your wife is going tomorrow with her friends. Charlie was right. Sorry, man. Sal took a deep breath to stay calm. Thanks, Snoopy. I guess I know what I need to do now. What's your plan? I've been thinking about it today. I have some strong suspicions, but I need proof before I make any decisions. Leave her or leave here, right? Both. Do you need help from us? Mick asked. Sal chuckled. Nope, this is on me. I deal with this kind of stuff all the time. They all laughed on the other end of the call. All right, guys. Sal began to end the call. Wait a second, Snoopy cut in. You're not the only one affected by this. There are other people involved. Sal laughed. He hadn't thought about that. Are you suggesting we dig deeper? Are you up for it? There's a story here. Do you want to help others like us? I hadn't thought about that. I was focused on my marriage, but yeah, I'm in. Then it's your story, Sal. You take the lead. Let us know how we can help you get this done, Mick said. Sal paused to think. He hadn't expected this. Normally, a story like this would go to someone more experienced like Snoopy. As a photographer, he could support, but now he saw a real chance for himself. I'm open to ideas, everyone. I'm open to suggestions. Hey, Sal, I can email you a tool. If you can get it onto their system, I'll be able to explore their network and gather some information. Send it over, Ding. I've been working with someone, and I'll be able to get that on tomorrow. Just to be sure, I need to load it and run it, right? Yep, once it's on, it will disappear, and then I can access their system from here. It's simple. Great, that will give us names, dates, and help us understand how everything works. I can find all the details we need to identify the location. If I see proof of Alice's actions, I can note it down. Sal, the trip she's going on is either tomorrow or the day after. I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, it is. I learned about it today. It's a gathering on a small island. They have a beach house and set up a space outdoors for activities under the stars. Sounds good to me. I'll figure out how to approach it. You write it up, Sal. Think about how to turn the facts into a story, Mick said. You have Snoopy who can help you once it's written. Make sure you write it yourself. This will be a good challenge for you. Cool, thanks everyone. Anything else? Yeah, just take care, okay? I don't want you getting hurt or doing anything foolish, all right? No worries. I appreciate your support, Snoop. Thanks, everyone. Hey, listeners. If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.